Top 10 tips for buying raw land for your custom home build. Join us next as we discuss. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on another episode of Let's Learn About Custom Home Building. Today we have a special category that we want to talk about, buying raw land. And we're going to go over some of the top 10 things to consider when buying raw land. My name is Sean Coy. I am the president and owner of SDS Homes Construction. And with me today, as always, my beautiful, lovely wife and partner, Chantel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chantel. I am the CFO and office manager at SDS Homes Construction.
Yes. And today we have a special guest for you guys. We brought in one of our friends and business acquaintances, right?
Yeah.
We love working with this man. His name is Joey Rahal. Joey?
Thank you. My name is Joey Rahal. I'm with Allison James Estates and Homes. I primarily work with land, raw land, improved land, and I've been working with Sean now for over 13 years.
Yeah.
And we've been doing land acquisitions ever since he started building. So I'm excited to talk about buying raw land today because that's what I love. And that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, we use Joey religiously for all of our new clients that we get. Most of them, as my wife will attest to, need land before they can build their house, correct?
Absolutely.
Even though we are licensed real estate agents, we pass that on to Joey and let him handle that aspect of the custom home building process.
Because he's great.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So we brought him in today because we wanted to talk about the top 10 tips about buying raw land. We're going to go over some of these things with you guys just so you can see what to expect and kind of go from there, right? We'll discuss each topic a little bit. Call them tips, right? Mm-hmm. Top 10 tips for buying raw land. And Joey can jump in and he'll help us out as well.
Let's get this party started.
So tip number 1, zoning and land use regulations. So this is a big one because if you don't know what the zoning laws are, or if you can even build a house, you're going to buy a piece of land and then you're going to have to turn around and sell it. Right?
We can help with that too.
Yeah.
But that's not our goal when we're looking
Correct.
for the raw land. We're looking for the perfect plot of land for someone who wants to build custom that's going to work for them. We want them to have their view. We want them to have enough area for what they're going to build. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, zoning and land use regulations are going to dictate what they can and can't do on the lot.
Okay.
So if they want to build residential, that's going to be a certain zoning. If they want to buy a big piece of land and subdivide it, that's going to depend on the zoning as well. A lot of important factors that go into zoning.
And this is why it's important to hire a professional. I think that's a tip down the road here, but I jumped ahead. But yeah, you want to make sure you're talking with people like builders and people like Joey who can actually look into this before we actually purchase or you purchase that piece of land, right? So we don't want any issues coming up down the road after you get all excited with the piece of land and then find out you can't even build.
Right. And it's important because you may see a piece of land that looks perfect, but the zoning may be completely wrong for the project that they want to do. So we need to dive into it, see what the zoning is, confirm the zoning with the county, and make sure it's going to work before they dive in and make a big investment in the land.
Good point.
I think that's what's so important about Joey. You could just get someone who is a real estate agent and doesn't know a lot about procurement of just land, right? As he said, reaching out to the county to make sure that it's actually zoned for what you want to do. Not saying normal, real estate agent wouldn't do that, but because that is, what Joey does, his bread and butter, then he knows those things to do so you don't get caught up.
Correct.
And have to sell it.
You don't want to just hire any real estate professional.
Correct.
You want to hire someone who focuses and primarily deals with land.
Yeah.
Right. Most residential agents don't typically work with land. They'll get one here and there, but it's really not enough for them to understand all the nuance and what goes into finding the perfect piece of land.
Good.
Yeah. Tip number 2.
Tip number 2.
Yes. So utility access. This is something I don't even think I thought about when we were, procuring land with Joey. Where are your utilities? Where's your water? Where is even that fire hydrant was a big thing for us, how far it was from us. Electrical. Where are those things on your property? Do you have to drag it from down the street or is it sitting right there in front? So in fact, we've talked about this before, but it's kind of, up in the air on whether you get it right there, if it's down the street and we have to like trench and bring it up.
Yeah, because a lot of people might not know this, but the fire hydrant, they're like, is it more than 100 feet away from your house? And they're like, oh, no. Well, a lot of people think 100 feet from their property line, and it's actually 100 feet, to the top of the house itself. So if your driveway is 1,000 feet away, then you're going to have some issues, right?
Yes.
So that was something that we come across a lot, is the fire hydrant being too far away, even though it's there on the street. Mm-hmm. So that's a good one.
Yeah. Utilities are probably the most important part for land, because those are your lifelines: water, electric, whether it's sewer or septic, propane or natural gas. Most of the properties we're working with are for custom homes are going to be in a septic area, and they're going to be propane. So these are things to consider, especially with electric. Nowadays, we're seeing more solar projects come in where electric is not available. And with septic, we're seeing alternative septic systems now, which now you can build on a lot where previously before you couldn't build because it didn't perk for a conventional septic.
Correct.
But utilities are your lifelines, and that's going to be one of the most important things to look at when you're purchasing raw land.
Yep.
Nice.
All right. So tip number 3, soil and land surveying. So a lot of people don't think about this, but they find the perfect lot and they don't know anything about the soil, right? Could be sand underneath there, right? Could be all rock. And we've talked about this before. Even ourselves, we've come across this.
Yes, and not to cut you off, but if you are like me, which a lot of you probably are, I just thought you find the land, get off all the weeds and stuff, and then you just go and build on top of that.
Right.
No.
So you got to get a soils engineer out there, right, to do a perk test and take some soil samples. You also have to get a surveyor out there to do staking the lots, right, the corners of your lot, and make sure that you're fit within that scope of the house size is going to be. And most people don't even think about that, but that's something we can do during your investigation period, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, your investigation period, we're going to negotiate enough time for you to figure out what you can and can't do, land zoning, utilities, and including the soil. That's why I love working with Sean, is because he has a great team of soils guys and engineers that can take a look if there's something that we're not seeing. Yeah. So they're going to come out, and they have a lot of data in the area already. So if we point a lot to them, they may have already data of what kind of soil is there. If there's a lot of boulders, we see a lot of boulders or issues on properties. Yep. So that's going to be a very, very important step.
Good point. Tip number 4, we're going to go with topography and drainage. Another big one that people don't take into consideration a lot of times, right? Drainage is a big issue, especially out here in the hilly mountains and the places where we live up in Duluth, because you can't build on what they call a red line or a blue line stream or waterway, right? And how are you going to know if that's even a blue line or a red line coming through your property unless you have someone like Joey and they can investigate that ahead of time, right? So do you come across that a lot, Joey, with people?
Absolutely. On properties, there could be natural waterways above ground, or it could be underground.
Oh, yeah.
So what we do is we'll go into the county records, we'll look at the maps, and then there we'll determine if there is a blue line. And then from there, we can determine whether it's above ground or underground. Regardless, if it's there, it's going to create an obstacle in building. It's going to be an area of the lot that you cannot build near, typically within 50 feet of a waterway. Yeah. And the reason they do that is so that the water lines don't get contaminated with building materials, or they don't get diverted to another lot where the water doesn't naturally flow.
Right. A lot of people don't think about that.
I know I didn't.
Right?
Yeah, you don't want to buy a lot with a blue line in it and realize, that's the blue line's running right through where you want to build your house.
Yep. And then as far as topography goes, that's more something like the steepness of the slope that you're on, right? Because a lot of driveways are going to be over that 16% threshold, and you can't go up more than 16%. So you have to look at the topography of the land as well, and how far you're going to have to bring it down, or how wide you're going to have to go with it, so that you can have a driveway that meets that minimum fire department code requirement.
Right.
So it's important,
Yeah, we're seeing
environmental.
that a lot now with the new rules with the fire department and the steepness of the lots. We see a lot of lots that look great, but they're too steep to put a driveway in, or they're going to have to do several cutbacks to where now your driveway is $100,000 more than you may have expected.
Correct.
So that's going to be an important. Looking at the topography is going to be important to determine your costs of a driveway.
Nice.
Number 5.
Yep.
Environmental considerations. I feel like Joey kind of touched on this a little bit, right? So through that, you're going to find out if you have wetland, if you have some wildlife in there, and those things are usually need to be protected because they.
Absolutely.
And so what happens is you can't build in those areas. And as Joey mentioned, it's because they don't want any building material, things like that in there. Those are like safe havens, right, that you can't build on. So it's very important, and Joey will get into that obviously with you and find out, if there are areas on the land in which you're trying to buy that are like off limits.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what about the kangaroo mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the kangaroo
Jumping
rat,
around.
the burrowing owl, and not only is it animals, we're talking about plant life too. Coastal sage scrub is a big one out here. It's an endangered bush.
Yep.
So places like Riverside County, they have the multiple species habitat conservation plan program that actually can take up some of your lot when you go to build. So that's important too. A lot of the lots left over in this area are going to be subject to some sort of conservation where they can't prevent you from building, but they may prevent you from building on certain areas of the lot. So that's a big key when you're looking at lots, is to understand what type of conservation may be on the lot.
We had that.
We actually went through that with our own personal property, where they were trying to tell us we couldn't build in a certain area of it, and we had to go fight and go to a meeting down in the county and discuss and talk to them and say, can you take this area instead of this area? And they want to protect certain amount of your lot.
Their goal with that program is to create continuous corridors for the wildlife to continue to migrate. Because if they didn't, they'd be cut off by a parcel. Then
Got it.
They
It's like block walls,
right?
Just
Exactly.
constant block
so
walls.
they want to
can't
make
go
sure
anywhere.
they can continue to move and migrate when they need to.
Good. Okay, tip number 6: access to roads and infrastructure. So, again, this is a simple one, but we have to discuss it.
Yes.
When you guys buy a lot or buy a piece of land, you need to make sure that there's a way to get up to it, right? A lot of times there's easements through somebody else's property that you share with the neighbor next to you. Even if you have 5 acres, there still might be an easement or a way to get in and out that you have to share with somebody else. Even the infrastructure itself, can you even put a road to get to that top of the mountainside, right? And I think me and you, we went and saw a couple of lots before where you needed a 4x4 just to get up to the hill. You know?
And some people have sports cars and they don't want to drive on that dirt.
Right. Right.
So it's important to look at whether there's a paved road access or if it's a dirt road access, and then you want to look into the future to see are they going to be paving a road here, because that could be a good investment to buy a piece of dirt that's on a dirt road, because you're going to get it cheaper now, but when they pave the road, your value can go up significantly.
Yep. Good point.
So that's important to look at too.
Yeah. Number 7.
7.
Permitting process. This is a big one, especially for our SoCal listeners. If you're in the Riverside County area, I know we've mentioned this before, but the permitting process can be treacherous. It's important to talk through that. Through just how long is it going to take to get your permits? Can you even build there? Are they going to, okay your plans and what you're looking to build? So all that plays a part into the permitting process.
Yeah. And I mean, this is why you need a real estate professional.
Yes.
Right? That they can look this stuff up ahead of time. Yeah. And that way there's no purchasing of land, when you can't really do anything with it.
Or it's going to save time too. The search is going to be more efficient where, we're not looking at stuff that's not going to work in the first place. So we're going to do the preliminary work to find out, if there's blue lines, if it's paved or dirt road access, and it's going to save us a lot of time. Instead of looking at, 10 different lots, we're going to go look at the 3 that are going to work for their project.
Yep. Good. Tip number 8, financing and land cost. This is one I wanted to talk to Joey about because I know the listeners out there might think that this is the same thing as buying a house, which it's not, right? When you buy land, there's a whole different loan process and down payment number and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. So you want to just kind of elaborate a little bit on that and what you guys see?
Yeah, so land financing is definitely not the same as financing for a home. There's different types of loans, and they typically carry higher interest rates, and they're shorter terms. The goal with the banks that do land financing is to help you acquire the land in hopes that you're going to stick with them and do their construction financing with the same company. But you don't have to use the same company. You can use, the banks that do offer financing. A lot of times they're 25% down typically for banks. But when that's not available or it's not going to work for the client, we do a lot of owner financing, seller financing. So the seller who owns a lot will be the bank. They'll determine how much they want down, what interest rate they want, and then they become the bank. So it takes out some of the conditions like the perk test, or having a sewer, which are conditions. It takes out the appraisal of the lot. So owner financing is a big deal and can really help a lot of people acquire land who otherwise will have financing difficulties.
That's a new one for me. I just learned something.
But typically land deals are going to be cash or, those two types of banks that do it.
Right. And if you do get a loan, let's say 25% down, what are you typically seeing as far as income or credit rate, ratings? Is it the same as buying a house?
Yes, typically the same for credit ratings and, debt to ratio. There's a little bit, different underwriting process, but it's pretty close.
Okay. And then we have land costs also in there, which people don't think about this, but once you purchase a piece of land, there's costs now that are associated with that. As we know, right? We have an empty piece of land just sitting there, but yet we got taxes. Yeah. You got HOA still.
They want their money.
The water department still charges us even though we don't use water.
Not at all.
So land costs are something else that we need to make sure that our clients know and are aware of, that if you're going to be holding this piece of land for a couple of years, there's going to be some costs that are attached to that. Even maintenance.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. A lot of these lots carry really high special assessments or bonds. Some of the higher lots that have the big views, they spend a lot of money to pull the infrastructure up the hill. So just bringing the water lines in, they're attaching large assessments to the lots in order to pay that off for them to bring it up. So, some of the lots we see up here have anywhere from 1,000 up to, we've seen 14,000 annually in just special assessments for a lot to bring the water up.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. If you're going to buy a lot and you're having to pay, $10,000 annually in an assessment, that's going to eat up your budget. So that's important to look at before you buy a raw piece of land.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention. I didn't know that the meter was going to be running on the water that we don't use.
Okay,
just saying.
And that's a good point. Tip number 8 is a good one. But again, if you guys have any questions or comments about any of these that we're putting up here, even any of the episodes we've already done, go ahead and leave questions and comments, below. We'll get to them. We'll answer them. Because I know we try to make these short, 10 to 12 minutes. And so sometimes you guys might want more, and just go ahead and leave your comments or questions in below, and we'll get to them. Yeah.
Number 9.
Tip number 9.
Yeah. Future value and resale potential. I think this is a good one, especially for land, right? Most of the time, your view is a big thing for people. The view, what you can, is it the city view? Is it the mountain view? Those things are big resale values for, for your home, or if you happen to procure land and maybe you don't build or you're holding it and you're going to sell it later.
Right.
Is it close to schools, grocery stores? How long does it take you to get from Duluth down the hill? Those type of things are really important to kind of make sure you pay attention to.
Right.
Did I forget anything, Joey?
Well, if you have kids, the school district is important. But the future resale, we want to look at what type of infrastructure is coming to the area. So if there's some new commercial or some big projects that are coming nearby, that's gonna be great for your future value. But when we're negotiating land lots, we're looking at once it's built, what the value is going to be. So we're looking at not only raw land or comparable land, we're looking at also the homes. What are they selling for in the area? Because that's going to be big on the client when they're looking at the cost of the land, the cost of their build. They're going to want to know that they're not underwater when they're done with their project, or at least they're at the value they need to be. So this is an important tip.
Yeah. And another good point. And again, this leads us to tip number 10, which I couldn't wait to get to, which is hire experts early, right? And as you can see, I mean, every tip we've had, Joey's been able to interject, and say something about this.
Yeah.
Even though it's short and we're keeping this to a minimal, his information is invaluable. So you have to get with someone like Joey early on. We'll lead you to him, but you want to get all these 10 items, under wrap and make sure that he does his investigations. If you try to go out this by yourself and just purchase land, there's a lot of things you could miss, and we don't want that.
Nope,
right?
not at all.
Okay, well, I want to thank Joey.
Thank
I appreciate you being here,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
Yeah, we love it.
That was fun.
Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. We just started this channel, so we want to, build the viewership up and make sure that everybody understands the custom home building process. We appreciate all your comments and your likes, and we look forward to doing these more.
Yeah. See you next time.
All right. See you.